Hi, and welcome to Stampin' with Sherry. Today we are going to make this beautiful card. I had a friend who just called me and said that he really needed a design for a sympathy card, and unfortunately these things come up occasionally, and so I'm going to show you this card today using a really neat watercolor technique. The sets that I'm using are the Loving Thought set by Stampin' Up! And the Gently Falling set. And this one actually has two. It's a two-step stamp, but I'm only using half of this set. But this one is exceptional for just about any occasion, and I like it because it has the With Sympathy saying in it. So that's what we're going to use today. So let's get started. We're going to start with creating this watercolor background here, and this is a really fun technique. All you need to do this is first of all, you're going to need some paper towels because it's the potential to make a little bit of messes there. I'm going to get some extra paper towels. Okay, so I'm going to spread that out. And this is just a clear envelope that Stampin' Up! Sells. You could probably use anything that is water resistant, plastic, and flat. It'll give you a nice even surface. This one I like because it's just about the right size for the card anyway. I've already cut a piece of Whisper White cardstock right here. The dimensions on this are 4 inches by 5 inches. And I'm going to take, so Stampin' Up! Also sells these great little spritzer bottles. Now these spritzer bottles come empty in a little 2-pack. They're very inexpensive. And what you do is you just fill up your little spritzer bottle with rubbing alcohol because rubbing alcohol dries faster. You can use water, but if you want that extra drying time reduced, then I recommend you do it with rubbing alcohol. So in order to create the ink inside, we use the ink refills. These are actually sold to go with our ink pads to get them wet again. But in this case, you actually just do about 8 drops of the ink into the container with your rubbing alcohol. And I just mark mine with whatever the color is, and I keep it stored. So I'm going to start with the Daffodil Delight. I'm just going to spray a little section, and then I'm going to use some Baja Breeze, and then some Elegant Eggplant. And I'm going to follow up with some Midnight Muse. And once I've got it sprayed, I just take my Whisper White cardstock and I'm just going to drop it right on top of the ink. And you can kind of see how it's absorbing here. Whenever it's done, I can press down a little bit just to make sure I've got good even coverage. And then when it's finished, I'm just going to very carefully lift it off of the plastic and set it aside to dry. If it ends up where you have too much ink, you can always kind of spot dry it with a little paper towel, but this one is pretty good just like it is. Now, we can't use it like this because it is wet, so I have already created, through the magic of television, a dry piece for us to use. Okay, so now I have my dry piece of cardstock in front of me that's been colored, and I'm going to take my leaves. I've double mounted them here on my block, and I'm using the white opaque StazOn ink. Now if you have a Whisper White pad, that would also work, or you could use a Versamark pad. I liked the white on the opaque because it gave me a little bit more than a watermark, but a little bit less than I would get with the white craft ink. But you know, you could use whatever your preference is. And so I'm just going to turn my stamp as I go through so that my leaves are going in different directions, and then add the 2 different sizes of leaves just to give it some texture and dimension. Okay, so there we go. You can kind of see the leaves there on the sheet. So now I'm going to do my With Sympathy part. This is a 2x4 piece of crumb cake cardstock, and I'm using my Midnight Muse ink pad with my With Sympathy stamp. And I love these papers that have the grid marks on them because I can kind of line it up and make sure that they get even. You'll see I've also got a sticker on my block that has lines on it as well. It helps me get it right in the middle. Sometimes, not always. So I'm going to line it up, stamp, and then I want to create something with my centerpiece that gives it a little bit of texture. So my friend was also asking me, how do you create that distressed look on the edges? Well, we have this great distressing tool that is sold by Stampin' Up. It's a very inexpensive little tool, and it has several different options. You can always use your scissors, right, and tear the edges a little bit, but it's going to ruin your scissors eventually. So I really recommend getting this little tool. It's fantastic. It's got several different places for you to tear, and you just run it along the edge of your paper to create that roughed up, kind of worn look to it. So when you're done with all of the edges, you can take your sponge dauber, and I'm using soft suede ink. Yeah, soft suede. And these little sponge daubers, they come in a package, not real expensive, excellent little tool. I'm just going to rub the edges where I've just done this distressing to make it look a little bit more aged, to make it pop a little bit on the edges. It gives it a little bit of character. And I'm just going to rub along. And you can do as much or as little of this shadowing as you want, but it just makes it look a little bit more than just distressed. And I'm even going to kind of roll the edges under because that looks really kind of cool and vintage too. And then just take my sponge dauber on the little curly edges too. There we go. So that's done. So in addition to this piece, I've cut out another piece of Midnight Muse that is also 4x5, and I'm going to adhere it to this piece, but I want to tear along one of the edges just to give it a little bit more texture on this card. Now on the one I showed you that I made the first time, I didn't use the distressing ink on the edge, but you could always do this as well, either in a color or in the soft suede. It gives it almost kind of like a burnt look to it. So I'm just going to do a little bit of the shadowing here on that torn edge, and then I will glue it to my Midnight Muse cardstock. Use my snail. Be sure you get the edges really good. Now I'm going to put this on a regular card, and I just want it to overlap a little bit and just show just a little bit of the blue on the edge. Alright, so there we go. Now I have some twine, some of the linen thread that Stampin' Up! Makes, and I'm going to wrap it around the card 3 times. I'm just going to hold it on one end, and I'm just going to wrap it around, and then I'll attach that with a button here in just a second. And I want to leave enough so that I can tie the ends of the thread through the button holes in the center of the button when I'm done. So I'm going to tie it once, and just for editing's sake, this is going to take me a little bit of time to get it through the little eyelets on the buttons. So I am going to, this is the vintage faceted button that I'm using. And just so you know, for the next week until the 22nd of March, during Celebration, you can get these as one of the free items if you place an order of $50 or more. So if you're going to place an order this week, it's a good time to get these buttons because they're beautiful. So I'm just going to pick one of these out, and I'm going to tie it in. Just going to go right through the little eyelets on there. And because this takes me a little bit of time, I am going to fast forward with the magic of television. Okay, so now I have finished attaching my button, and I'm just going to secure the back of it with a glue dot, and I use my tweezers to get the glue dot just where I want it and position it just right. And we are almost done with this card. So I'm just going to put my glue dot there and position it like I like it, and there's my With Sympathy saying for the middle. Put my snail glue on the back, attach that as my focal point. And then I just have a piece of crumb cake cardstock, and this is just where I've cut it on the long side at 5.5 inches of a regular 8.5 by 11 sheet. And I'm just going to fold it in half and give it a nice little firm thing there. Get ready to attach my main decorative part. And voila! There's my card.